let us address the history of Mr. Lurk. So, before there was Mr. Lurk, there was Mr. James Sullivan, late of the United States, and now a denizen of our fair sceptred isle. And so, Mr. Sullivan,
Mm-hmm.
it is another London morning, which is to say, in theory, the sun has risen, though you cannot yet see it because there are two chief factors. The first is that the part of the city you're living in is quite densely built, so the sun will have to be quite high in the sky before it presents itself to you, and also the Thames has a mist rolling off it, which would be very frightening to Mr. Leech if he could but see it. But yes, it is daylight hours, and you have a job today that sounds rather tedious. But we open as your beloved wife, Mary, who has actually only lately come home from her own work, is clearing up the breakfast things. You can see that she's pretty much going to slope off to bed as soon as you're out of the door. Shall I expect you back in a timely fashion tonight, darling?
As long as things don't go south, yeah.
That's quite all right. I'm not I'm not expected tonight, so I shall expect you when I expect you. No, oh, there you go. Keep whoever it is safe, and I'll see you later.
All right. Sleep well.
She looks like she already is.
Oh.
She zombies her way. So today, your job, your client, is one Sir Lawrence Lazenby. Sir Lawrence Lazenby is he owns a middlingly prominent bank, and he's reached out to your fixer to arrange a day of personal security. You have some context for this, but between things you've read in the newspapers and things that your fixer has told you, a friend of his, a fairly prominent, not literally a millionaire, but the scale of modern day wealth would be millionaire, called Elias Crane, was recently found murdered, and Sir Lawrence, who was a business associate and bridge partner of Mr. Crane, is feeling, oh gosh, I don't like this, and he's got a meeting today. It's a bit annoying because he wants an escort from his home to the bank. His home is off Grosvenor Square, and his bank is in the city. Everyone who lives outside of London has no idea why that's annoying. And then you've got to hang around until he's ready to go home. So it's pretty boring, but not out of the ordinary, I don't think, for Mr. Sullivan. And it does amount to being a long day. Once Sir Lawrence is installed at the bank, he stays, and it starts to grow darker, and eventually you see the last of the customers leaving. Not long after that, you see the last of the staff leaving. Still no Sir Lawrence, and it's only probably an hour after the last clerk leaves the bank that the carriage pulls around, and with the audacity of the super rich, Sir Lawrence chides you impatiently to get a move on and mount the front of the carriage, and you begin the long drive. It's a little smoother on the way back because it's considerably after most people have travelled. Of course, London streets are very variable in how well constructed they are, but obviously Sir Lawrence lives in a quite well paved region of the city. By the time you get home, it is easily 9 p.m. And so tell me about Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan is the kind of guy who he does personal security, and obviously we know that he is a very shrewd and observant person. Does he have any fear at all walking the London streets alone at night?
No, I think his only fear is, oh shit, I don't understand these silly British people. I'm gonna do a faux pas.
Yeah.
That's his biggest fear.
Yeah. Just don't talk to them in the pub. That's it. Yeah. So, yeah, at this time of night, essentially, you have a person walking with confidence can be the king of the street. So you're okay. But it's very late when you get back. And it's not your wife who greets you upon your return. Hearing you come in through the front door, and I think perhaps the one encounter you have been dreading is your exceptionally chatty landlady, who's obviously been waiting up before she locks the front door. And she comes out clutching a hot water bottle under one arm. Oh, Mr. Sullivan. Keeping a very late hour, I see.
Just doing my work.
Yes, well, on this side of the ocean, we like to keep things 9 to 5, as it were. Now, you had a letter by personal courier.
Oh, thank you much.
And you can see, indeed, there is no stamp, and there is no address. It simply says, Mr. J. Sullivan. In rather nice handwriting. It's very rare for a client to reach out to you directly because usually they don't know your name. They certainly don't know where you live. But you also know from having been on person locating duties that people with enough money, I guess, can find people. She loiters around for a couple of minutes. She needs a name. Mrs. Dawson. She loiters around for a couple of minutes to see if you're going to read it in front of her and to gauge your reaction. When it becomes clear that you're not going to do that, she gives a little sigh and mumbles good night and goes to lock the door before retiring.
Yeah, I'm just gonna nod and head off to my abode.
Good. So, do you read the letter tonight?
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna pour myself some bourbon. No, he would save the bourbon for special occasions. He's gonna pour himself some scotch. Some nice scotch, but not like too nice. And read the letter.
Irish or Scottish?
I see he's not fully converted.
Scottish,
to the,
obviously.
The London gin craze. Then he's definitely
no, gin is far too exotic for his taste.
Oh right, oh dear. Not the stuff that Mrs. Watkins brews in her bathtub. I don't think. I don't think you brew gin. I actually think you distill gin. Now I come to think of it. So you open up the letter. The handwriting within the letter matches that on the outside. Very not ornate to the point of being actively posh, but certainly this is someone whose day-to-day occupation involves writing. And the letter reads as follows.
Dear Mr. Sullivan, I have need of your services tomorrow evening and the day after. Kindly meet me at Rules at 6 p.m. tomorrow and ask for me upon your arrival. Should this appointment conflict with one prior, you shall be compensated at your usual rate. Until then, I remain your servant, Mr. Spider.
Okay.
The only thing remarkable about the letter is that despite sounding rather formal, there's no letterhead to speak of.
I'm trying to think if... Do you think that he has experience getting pranked? Or do you think... I feel like the niceness of the handwriting probably does outweigh any reservations he might have about it not having a letterhead, because pranksters usually don't have very good handwriting in his experience. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just gonna read it over a few more times, sip his scotch.
Well, Mr. Sullivan is a fairly fashionable person when he wishes to be. I mean, obviously, in his
Yes.
day-to-day life, he dresses, flexibly, not in an outlandish way. But he certainly is familiar with swank as a concept. And I think he therefore knows that the venue of this meeting, which is a restaurant called Rules, is on the upper end of the scale. It's the sort of place where social climbing solicitors and doctors will dine, or where the upper crust will dine before attending the opera, because it's in the West End. So you will know that it is a formally attired sort of place, but I don't think Mr. Sullivan will have too much of an issue with that. He has the wardrobe for such a venue without question.
Yes, I think he will. I think that is... He always likes an excuse to, dress nice, get some delicacy, food. So I think that even if it turns out to not be a great job, at least it'll be a nice evening out.
Yeah,
or I guess afternoon. I don't remember what time.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
So it will be about the time that the place starts filling up before the evening's entertainments, or the post matinee crowd start filing out, that kind of time. So your next day, you have an engagement that might run up against 6 p.m. But it's with a regular client, so it's not too difficult to say, I have a prior thing, and you give yourself enough time to get home, change. Here's a question: you obviously have a taste for attire, but you're going to Rules and you're dressed up for this kind of restaurant? Do you walk through the dusty streets, or do you take a cab? Are you interested in preserving the cleanliness and the integrity of your outfit?
Yes, I think so.
And usually I imagine, do you travel by foot?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And you arrive at Rules, and it is... We've never been there, I wouldn't have imagined, but certainly you know the kind of place. There's a porter on the door, asks if you have a reservation, and understands when you mention you're meeting a Mr. Spider, and takes your coat. And you are led through. Rules is a rather glamorous place, and it's sort of a fashion leader at the moment, because it's London's first proper cocktail bar. Cocktails as we know them today, kind of emerged in the States, much like Mr. Sullivan, and eventually found their way over, and Rules has really adopted it. And so you're taken to a seat where you see Mr. Spider, who I assume is wearing his mask. Is he, or is he? Does he go unmasked?
No, I think he'll be masked. He's still smartly dressed, and it seems more of a sort of slightly eccentric affectation of the rich. You know, he's dressed for a night out rather than his usual attire, which is more opera driven.
Well,
Can't wear your opera suit to a restaurant.
It would be very strange to
Obviously,
wear white
yeah.
tie to dinner when you have no intention of going out afterwards. One of the junior porters, Mr. Spider, your guest has arrived.
Thank you, Richard.
I shall bring the drinks menu presently.
Good evening.
Please sit down, Mr. Sullivan.
I'm going to take the letter out of my... Well, I guess they took my coat. So wherever I'm keeping the letter, I will pull the letter out, just keep it folded, and just kind of place it on the table.
I trust you had no trouble finding the establishment.
No. I have worked for plenty of people who have talked enough about this place that it, its reputation precedes it.
Quite. As does yours.
I have a reputation?
You have come recommended to me for a certain job that I feel needs a man of your skills.
And what skills are those that I can help you with?
I am having a meeting tomorrow in Camden Market. And I believe it will be important that that meeting is observed by someone other than just me. For a number of reasons, I don't believe I can bring my usual contacts on this meeting.
All right.
I will need someone who can both keep an eye out and adapt, but perhaps spring to action should it call for it.
Sounds like you got the right guy then.
If that is indeed true, then your pay shall be at your usual rate.
All right. I tell Mr. Spider what my pay rate is.
Do you bilk at all, or is it an honest rate?
Oh no, it's honest. He's an honest boy.
Mr. Spider, who will almost certainly have done even a gentle bit of research on the rates, will nod internally at Mr. Sullivan's honorability. Very well. There is a public house in Camden called the Downtime. It's off Drury Lane. You'll meet there at 11:30 in the morning. You will cover as much of your face as deemed necessary for you not to be recognized. And whilst we are on this mission, you will answer to the name Mr. Lurk.
Lock? Like lock and key?
No, Mr. Sullivan, lurk, as in to lurk in shadows.
Oh, lurk. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm still, relatively new to the area. I still getting used to that.
Yes. I imagine conflict of roticity is a problem for you.
He doesn't know what that word means.
So he just laughs like, haha, yeah.
Those rotuses.
Yep. Like the chicken?
Roticity chicken. Just the
Yeah.
thing goes, "Arr."
Bark?
All right. Reckon I can do that. What? Oh, wait, no. I was going to ask what I should call you, but then I remembered you put your name on the letter. Never mind.
Indeed. As you can see, I've covered everything.
Yes.
Now, don't worry. We're going to be meeting outside of the pub, so we can talk.
All right.
If we no, sorry, he doesn't say that. I'm making a joke about if we were in the pub, you can't talk.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
Trying to think if I have any things that Mr. Lurk should ask. Do you expect this? I know you said that I should be ready to spring into action, as it were. What kind of action are we talking, and how heavy should that spring be, so to speak?
In truth, I am not certain. But I am currently investigating an extremely dangerous sort of situation. It is my sincere hope that nothing happens that is dangerous or untoward. That I have my meeting, it goes smoothly, and we part ways, you having had a boring afternoon and I with the information I seek.
That's always the hope.
Nevertheless, the worst case scenario could be.
All right, I can work with that.
But that being said, I know plenty of violent, capable men who could fulfill this role if all I needed was death and bloodshed. What I am seeking is stealth, discretion. For you to be an invisible presence in this meeting. So do whatever you must to be unseen.
Discretion is my middle name.
Is that an Americanism?
It's a joke. Yeah, that's a yes.
Is it American to only have one single middle name? My middle names are Archibald Theodore Montgomery St. John, and that's considered very few. Yeah. I'm basically a peasant.
My family aren't aristocracy. You'd start Mr. Slide on his middle names, and he'd be done all.
If you get high enough socially ranked, you have a lot of middle names, but you don't have a surname, so it compensates automatically.
It's true. It's true.
So, Mr. Spider, do you treat Mr. Sullivan to dinner or just drinks?
I think it's drinks, and I think he'll probably, he'll have set them up just for drinks because it's a quiet corner and it's easier to sort of be out of the way. Also because he didn't foresee a long gathering, since what he's learned about Mr. Sullivan is he's a bit down to business kind of guy.
Yes.
Rules is famous at this time for three things. Cocktails, oysters, and the fact that its founder was a murderer.
That's why I love this place. You can really taste the murder.
In 2022, Rules is famous for two things: venison and lots of Downton Abbey being filmed there. But they haven't invented that yet. So. I mean, venison? They haven't invented venison. They've obviously Downton Abbey exists. Like, that was set in the 20s, so Downton Abbey does have to exist.
Yes, Maggie Smith is a treasure.
But it's never occurred to anyone to eat a deer yet. They just they don't know what to do with them. There are so many of them.
They're just so fast.
Well, they're so fast. They're so skittish. What do we do with them? Okay, so the next day rolls around, and Mr. Lurk, you actually have some idea where Aventine is, because you've taken security jobs in and around the West End before, so you know vaguely. Not the kind of place you'd normally frequent. It has a strange vibe, actually. It's a large pub, and it's in a reasonably nice part of town. But it's kind of the modern equivalent is one of those inexplicably divey places that's just in a quite nice area. It must be inexplicably grungy on purpose, like it's a hipster thing, right? But they haven't invented hipsters yet, so you have no idea what's going on. But you see Mr. Spider. Mr. Spider, here's a question, actually. Do you arrive promptly, or do you like to arrive second? Like, is he thinking about this? It's really important.
It is important.
Well, it says a lot about what he values as a dynamic between people.
I think,
because I'm guessing, and Zoe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Lurk probably doesn't just whistle his way blithely to a meeting place. I'm guessing he, stops a little way back. Is this Mr. He's obviously given you a fake name. He's given you a fake name, so something clandestine is happening here. So I guess what I'm wondering is, are Mr. Spider and Mr. Lurk mutually trying to make sure the other isn't doing anything sus before they meet in public in the middle of the day?
I actually think Mr. Spider arrives exactly at 11:30 and stands outside the Aventine and lights a cigarette. And if Mr. Lurk was watching his approach, he isn't doing that thing where he arrives early and then sort of hangs around and then approaches. Somehow he's timed it so that he is walking down the street at a gentle walking pace. He has a walking stick.
I think, given that you do so much of your business as Mr. Spider from the Aventine, the watch that you wear as part of your Mr. Spider getup is probably synced to the clock that hangs outside nearby the Aventine. So what we see is, as we hear the wind-up sound of the bell on the clock, Mr. Spider comes to a stop as the past bell rings, just at that exact moment, because Mr. Spider arrives precisely when he means to.
You might say that Mr. Spider runs on Aventime.
Oh no, that's not good.
I might say that, yes.
Yeah, no. So we might, unfortunately. So I think Mr. Lurk probably notices this.
Yeah.
That's potentially quite interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a rich people have their quirks, and that seems like one of those. Like, okay. Good morning.
He makes a show of checking his watch, even though the guy knows what time it is. Precisely on time. I do appreciate punctuality.
I've been here for 20 minutes, scoping it out. Got to make sure I have a lay of the land if I'm to keep an eye on things. You know how it is.
Quite. No, you are encouraged to act how you deem necessary. Very well. My meeting shall be under a bridge that runs over the Regent's Canal. You might find it useful if we arrive there early to inspect the area around there.
Of course.
But aside from that, I value your insights.
Okay.
If you have any questions, Mr. Lurk, I suggest ask them now, for once we have parted ways, I will not be indicating your presence.
Oh gosh. Do I have any questions? I'm trying to think if he would have thought of anything between yesterday's meeting and this morning.
You know what? They're having a conversation,
Mhm.
and then they'll say that,
Mhm.
and then the scene will end because they've
Okay.
walked to Regent's Canal. So we have this
Perfect.
point to flash back to if suddenly one of us needs to do something to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Perfect.
if something comes up, you can always say it didn't surprise you because you covered it earlier. Mr.
Yes.
Lurk is much more experienced at this, after all,
He is.
than we are. So good. You arrive at probably about 11:45, and the market's fairly busy. So the bridge itself has plenty of foot traffic. There are boats going up and down the canal, not too terribly often, but people walk alongside it in this part of town. So if anyone were to see Mr. Spider chatting with someone under the bridge, they probably wouldn't think twice about it. So yeah, I guess you probably want to have a look around, Mr. Lurk, and see if there's anything that stands out to you. And if you wish to do so, you may.
Yeah, I think I'm going to prowl.
You can
Or would
prowl.
that be a survey? Yeah, I think it would be survey.
You can survey.
Actually.
Prowling, you could do it with prowling. Prowling would be doing it in a particularly sly fashion, but it's a busy marketplace.
Yeah,
No one's gonna care about you.
All right.
Now
It is
I actually have a minor hinder has been cashed in by interiority.
Gosh.
So I am going to.
The Hinderkinder are back at it again.
Interiority is the king of hindering. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to give you reduced effect just because of the crowd, basically.
Perfect. All right, controlled.
Yep.
Limited effect.
Yep. In the rule book, I swear it's called reduced effect, but for some reason on the character sheet it's called limited. So I'll say reduced most of the time.
Okay.
But yeah.
Oh no.
Oh no! What have we?
Oh no.
Oh no! Okay, so that's fine. Essentially, you do a walk around the area. You take a quick. I think you probably take a bit of a stroll between one step down to the canal bank and up again, over the bridge a couple of times, but you don't get much of an insight. The truth is that it's not absolutely packed. There's mobility, but if the guy Mr. Spider is meeting with decides to run, it could get very chaotic very quickly, and you can't really predict what direction anyone would be able to run in. So it's just going to be a case of keeping an eye out and reacting as needed. And by the time Mr. Lurk has finished his Mr. Lurk, here's actually, do you stay on watch from a distance? Do you stand with Mr. Spider? What's your preference?
I think probably from a distance, and I think that at least, well, I think he's going to try to balance once the meeting starts. I think he's going to try to balance keeping an eye on the meeting and like perusing the market. Like, he might buy a little chunk of bread or an apple or something to munch on, just to look like he's just a guy going to the market.
He's just a little guy.
Yeah, he's just a guy. So yeah, he's gonna try to one eye on the shopkeeper that he's chatting with, and one eye on the thing he's supposed to be keeping an eye on.
So yes, as I say, by the time Mr. Lurk has finished his survey and has gotten into position, the bell on the market clock tower strikes the hour, and no one has descended to meet Mr. Spider.
And where is he precisely? Mr. Spider is like on the bridge.
Mr. Spider, that's a good question. Are you waiting underneath the bridge where the meeting is to be held?
Oh, right, it's under the bridge.
Yeah, I think Mr. Spider's probably waiting at the spot that...
Yeah, so I think that what Mr. Lurk is probably doing is he's probably found a vantage point where he can see the bridge itself and the steps down that someone would most likely use. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to see the meeting taking place, but you probably do have an eye on Mr. Spider, because you don't want, he's your client and you don't want him to get stabbed. No, unless you do. I mean, it doesn't seem very professional to me, but I'm not going to tell you what you want.
If Mr. Spider gets stabbed, he's going to leave you such a Yelp review.
I mean,
he won't get paid if he gets stabbed.
That's very true. And also, this is a really, really extended flashback. So if any time travel stuff has to happen, this is going to be very strange. And before long, the quarter hour chimes on the clock tower, and still no one has... It's at this point where, Mr. Lurk, I imagine you've been standing here for about 15 minutes now, and you know that in a crowd like this, no one's going to be bothered too much about someone standing still. There could be all sorts of reasons for that. Shifting a bit in your position, you take a quick glance just to make sure no one's emerged from the other side of the bridge. And it's at that point that you both hear screams, and there's a terrible commotion. Mr. Lurk, you can see that the commotion is on the bridge, and there's this strange movement of Mr. Spider. You hear this from directly above you, and you can see that there's the weird kind of crowd reaction where something has happened that simultaneously draws everyone's attention but completely repulses them. You can hear women screaming, you can hear cries of shock, you can hear people shouting things like police or somebody help him.
Yeah, I'm immediately going to run towards that, because that's my job. Mm-hmm. Run to the danger.
Okay, Mr. Spider, what are you going to do?
I think Mr. Spider is going to, rather than springing into action immediately, take a moment to take stock of the situation, sort of see if something's clearly happened on the bridge, see if something falls from the bridge, for example, or someone is seen running off. Yeah. So rather than running into the action, he's taking a second to step back from the action to go, what's going on?
Makes sense. So, Mr. Lurk, you make your way through the crowd, and you can see that there is a man on the bridge who has fallen to the ground. He's wearing a rather distinctive coat, quite old-fashioned to your mind, in a shocking pea green, and he has, perhaps most distinctively of all, a knife protruding from his stomach. He is still alive, but it's not looking good from the volume of blood that he's coughing up, and you can hear in the distance police whistles. You can hear constables coming to try to separate the crowd. So, Mr. Spider, you can certainly hear this, but obviously you haven't seen anything.
I guess given that nothing immediately seems to be amiss beyond that, Mr. Spider will approach the scene, and probably upon seeing the figure, will then break into a run.
Okay, a run. So, explain. Yeah, what's your plan then? You're running away because knives are scary?
Yeah, I am scared of knives.
Reasonable.
And violence, and blood makes me icky.
Yeah.
No, he's going to run towards the figure. He is an authoritative man in a situation, and I think, clearly people are like trying to get help or not sure what to do, and there's a sense of panic. So he's sort of trying to run towards the figure.
Okay, but one thing, Mr. Lurk, is that there's no present sign of an assailant.
Yeah, so I think what I'm gonna do is, as soon as I see the man, I'm gonna get down, I'm sure that Mary has taught me at least the basics of first aid, so I
Mhm.
know, pressure on the wound. I'm gonna
Sure.
take out a handkerchief, pressure on the wound, but talk to the guy, keep him conscious, and also ask him, like, who did this? Who did this? What did he look like? Tell me where to go.
You
Pressure, pressure.
he is desperately trying to speak, but it's just not happening. Every breath he takes is completely obstructed by his own blood. He's fading pretty fast, but he does manage very briefly to lift a hand to point, and he's pointing back over the bridge towards the market before his arm falls.
As I see Mr. Spider running towards us, um, I don't know. I guess, like, what is Mr. Spider going to acknowledge Mr. Lurk?
Mr. Spider does not even look at Mr. Lurk even a little bit. So that to anyone seeing them, these are two men who have approached the situation from two sides and are
Sure.
doing their best. And given that, I think Mr. Lurk is a little confused, given that he's just seen the hand flop and he's obviously got a hand over the wound still. He's doing the first aid. How Mr. Spider immediately drops to his knee and like checks the man's pulse and seems to be going around looking for injuries on him. And Mr. Spider is going to search this man.
You're rooting through his pockets, are you?
Yes, but trying not to make that too obvious. Like, he's not trying to do it surreptitiously, but he's not trying to be like pulling out his pockets and like pulling his coat off him and stuff like that. He's
as you do so, you hear what you first simply think is uh, 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 his gasps as he's sort of finally succumbing, but you do make out that he has expended the last of his effort to get three words out. To your hearing, Mr. Spider, as you find something curiously weighted in his inner breast pocket. Still here, run. And as you get back, as you withdraw back up, you smoothly do so, with a small, fairly unremarkable, slender tin and a more elaborate looking sort of gilt brass cigarette case.
Those both make it to Mr. Spider's pockets, and I think upon the message that he received, again will smoothly stand up in that kind of, oh, a terrible man, a man has died, or a terrible sort of way, and sort of walk off confidently in a direction.
Are you going in the direction he pointed, or are you going opposite to the direction he pointed? You still do not have any information about an assailant.
No, I think he will go in the direction that was pointed because he is interested.
Okay.
So I didn't want to interrupt Izzy, but
no.
I think that when Mr. Spider shows up and makes it clear that he's not gonna, they don't know each other, I think Mr. Lurk is going to say, like, can you handle this? And ask him to, like, at least keep one hand on the pressure, and he's going to take off in the direction that he pointed, just looking for a suspicious figure.
Okay, so temporally that happened first, so let's deal with that. So you turn, you can see that this is the stage where the crowd has reached that sort of stage where they're not calm, but they're not panicking. It's sort of that gabble. What's going on? What's happening? What is it? And you can see that there's a single constable trying to instigate some kind of control. But because he's on his own, what this is effectively amounts to is there's a group of women who had been there when the poor man was attacked, who are now sort of in a state of distress, and he's sort of trying to keep them calm and reassure them that more help is on the way. You don't see anyone running from the scene. Obviously, that would be immediately suspicious to even the good old-fashioned Metropolitan Bobby must surely find that suspicious. You don't see anyone furtively looking back. You could do a survey or a study to see if there's anyone who looks like they're trying to be inconspicuous, maybe.
Sure, I will do a survey of that. Is this still controlled, or?
Yeah, there's no risk entailed to you doing this back at standard effects.
That's better. That's a 5.
Success. So, you're reasonably confident that whoever this assailant is, they are still part of the crowd. There hasn't been enough time for anyone to get that far away. Certainly if they were trying to act casual. So it could be one of the guys standing over watching Mr. Spider attempt first aid, for all you know. And as you ponder that, we'll resynchronize the timeline. Mr. Spider, you take one single step in the direction that Mr. Lurk had walked, the direction that the poor unfortunate man had been pointing, and you stop because his murderer is looking right at you. Yeah, that's very strange, isn't it? Because Mr. Spider doesn't actually have a supernatural instinct for who a person's murderer is. But in the crowd of ladies being calmed down by the benighted constable, there is a face that you would recognize if you saw it in the fog with your eyes half closed. The face of one Miss Eudora Mountjoy. Acting the part of the shocked young woman being calmed down by the constable, feigning tears into her handkerchief, for she has seen something terrible and violent. And she doesn't look as well as she did when you last saw her. So the pallor in her complexion makes her look wan and as if she's about to faint. It looks perfect. But she is, despite her act, she has made eye contact with you.
I think Mr. Spider freezes on that spot on the bridge.
As deer do when they see wolves.
Yep. But most importantly, no one knows how to eat a deer.
No one has figured it out yet. That might be the only thing that saves you.
Mr. Spider often has a sort of very practiced way about him. You know, when he moves, when he walks, he's very precise. And I think it's probably quite telling to a man like Lurk, if he glances at Mr. Spider at any point, that Mr. Spider visibly, you know, he's got his gloves on, you know, he's dressed in his smart suit. He very visibly sort of holds the edge of the bridge, you know, the railing of the bridge, maybe for support, or maybe it's a gesture of some sort, but he has frozen in place for the time being.
Yeah, I think Mr. Lurk, being the good old American boy he is, would not ever really consider a woman a threat. He's not looking at the women in this crowd.
No, and I mean, actually, I was going to say that not only is that's exactly what I was thinking, but another thing I think another reason Mr. Lurk might have dismissed, again, not for legitimate reasons, but for Victorian reasons, that there was a female accomplice, was because that knife was in him.
Oh yeah.
It was driven.
Women do not have strong.
Women
they
poison.
They no strong arm.
Yeah, everyone knows women poison. That's the only way that goes. Yes, absolutely, 100%.
And so I think when as he's kind of looking around and is unable to really pinpoint anybody that he sees as a threat, he is going to look back and catch Mr. Spider looking like a deer in the headlights, and he is going to attempt to kind of follow his eye line and see what has spooked him.
So you're perfectly welcome to do that, but I will add a detail to something that Mr. Lurk sees that may perhaps influence his action, though it may not, and that is, you notice that of course Mr. Spider has been attempting life saving on the man on the bridge, and although there is but a single police constable, there is a promise of more, and although he's very occupied, he won't be forever. Mr. Spider is presently the only member of the crowd with blood on his hand.
Okay, so when I was talking to... When Mr. Spider and I have been having our conversations planning this, did it seem like my job was more along the lines of, like, if there is a threat, you deal with the threat and that's the priority, or is it more along the lines of keep him safe and like focus on Mr. Spider more than the threat?
Good question.
Mr. Spider very helpfully said that he trusts your judgment and that he expects you to be able to spring into action if something goes awry.
Well, yeah, very helpful.
Well, I'm going to help you out a little bit.
Okay.
By starting a 4-segment clock called "Someone Notices the Bloody Hand."
Okay. Oh, good. Oh no. Well, okay. In past jobs that Mr. Lurk has had, well, so I feel like his clientele is usually rich assholes, and rich assholes care more about self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's probably what he is not necessarily like trained to do, but that's what he's gotten used to doing. So I think that but he doesn't want to be seen. Do he and Mr. Spider make eye contact as he's glancing back at him?
Likely not. Mr. Spider's eyes are firmly fixed on this crowd of women.
Because I was thinking about very conspicuously, like, taking my gloves off and then putting them back on to try and like indicate, pay attention to your hands.
I like the image, especially since we know later on Mr. Lurk is going to get an impression of Mr. Spider as someone who has all the plans and is very good and smart and good. In this moment, he's desperately like, and Mr. Spider's like, I'm just gonna keep staring like I'm a man about to die.
Okay, so I think Mr. Spider seems like the kind of guy who could get himself out of that kind of mess, as in a legal mess.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Mr. Lurk is going to deal with the threat. I think Mr. Lurk is going to try and figure out what has Mr. Spider so scared and deal with that.
Excellent. So you follow his gaze back. You can see again as the police officer moving around the crowd. What we all see, what Mr. Spider sees, what Mr. Lurk sees, is the same thing. You see a crowd of women being calmed down by this police officer. Mr. Spider, when the police officer moves in her way and out again, she's gone. So, Mr. Lurk, you follow Mr. Spider's gaze, but he can only be looking at the market cross where this crowd has been gathered. But there's nothing that strikes you as An in-uniform police constable is unlikely to stab someone in the stomach on Camden Market Bridge. They have truncheons. That's much more likely.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, I guess like when he looks back at Mr. Spider, has he kind of snapped out of it now that she has disappeared?
If that's what you do, then yes, Mr. Spider almost as if like this was always part of the plan. The moment something happens, he just expression does not change from sort of a blank neutral expression. He just turns on his heel and walks with the authority of a man who's walking. But he very clearly, his plan was always to stay walking along the canal. He very clearly is walking in the market square in the sunlight.
I will follow behind discreetly, keeping a distance, so that, you know, eventually when we're out of sight, potentially we can reconvene with each other and touch base and figure out what the fuck just happened.
Okay. Because it's my job to do so, I'm going to start a new clock.
Oh gosh.
I'm going to start a 4-segment clock. No segments in it just yet. And that clock is going to be called Evidence Destroyed.
Okay.
So, Mr. Spider, where are you going?
I think at the exact moment Mr. Spider is just kind of extracting himself from the scene. Again, I don't think he's immediately thinking that he'll be blamed for the death. I think it's more just he wants to be away from the immediate vicinity of the event. And probably then will notice the blood on his gloves and be quite annoyed by it because he wants to inspect the items and doesn't want to get blood on them, but also doesn't want to potentially destroy fingerprints or anything by not having his gloves on. So he seems to be tossing up what to do, and then will peel his gloves away and sort of let them fold inwards so that the blood stays in.
At this point, fingerprints aren't going to matter because you should not have taken these items. There is no story the police are going to believe at this point about why you have this man's personal effects and your fingerprints are or are not on them.
Oh, he doesn't care so much about the police. He cares more in case this gives some evidence about what he wanted to learn from this man.
Fine, even better.
But what he will do is he will fold his glove. He will do that thing where he peels his gloves off, so that the blood stays inside, so that when he puts them in his pocket, he doesn't get blood on his clothes because that would annoy him. And then as he walks, he's going to pull out the cigarette case and the box. Was it?
It was a slender tin, somewhat small. You know what it is. It's a calling card case. You carry a very similar one yourself.
That's true.
In both your guises, and the other is clearly a cigarette case. Very nice. It's monogrammed. It's monogrammed with initials, and it's not gold, but it's plated gold.
Then I think as he's walking, he is inspecting both of these items for knowledge.
Well, the monogram is SK, and within the cigarette case, there is an inscription which reads, "Your loyalty shall ever be rewarded," and it is engraved Eudora. The calling card case proclaims that this man is called as Spencer Kirby. His business is described as an agent of all manner of business and finance, and it gives an office address not too far from here. Having spent some time to do that, I will advance the evidence destroyed clock by 1.
I've done something. I'm looking at you, Lurk.
Yeah, I mean, I am just going to stay behind you at a distance until you acknowledge me. I am going to pretend that you don't exist and that I'm just a guy walking down the street, keeping an eye on things, but, you know, we don't know each other.
Is it vague on purpose, the evidence destroyed clock, or am I allowed to know what that means?
Oh, sorry, it's not meant to be vague. Clocks are usually pretty transparent. I'm going to rename the clock because I definitely don't want it to be vague. The new name of the clock is Kirby's Office Destroyed.
Ah, superb.
Oh,
That does answer what I was going to do next, which is that having stridden away from this, does it? Yeah, does it?
It can do.
Given that Spider knows Camden very well and is a Londoner by profession, is
we will never know the question. What
Never
suspense?
will. Izzy's trying her best because when she sneezes once, she sneezes 8 times after that, and they get progressively louder with each one. So
holding it together, I'm good.
You are doing very well.
From where we are at Camden Market to Kirby's office is the quickest route. You get a cab. Is the quickest route you walk. Is the quickest route you walk along the canal. Like, you know how there's ways of getting places in London, and like an hour drive could be a 10-minute walk. If you try hard.
It's a much easier walk with these busy streets at this time of day than it would be trying to find a cab.
Then once a brisk walk has taken Mr. Spider from the scene of the stabbing to the edge of the market, or the edge of the immediate market, he will walk through an alleyway. He is going to in the process of doing so, he is going to I think do a couple of things that Mr. Lurk will definitely notice, but the intention is that the average person wouldn't notice, which is that he will remove his hat, tuck it under his arm, remove his coat, hang it over his arm, and his walking stick, which is not walking stick, but like a little sort of cane for forgetting about. He sort of twists a few sticks in it, and it just collapses down into his pocket, so that he's in a sort of blue suit, and like he's still wearing the mask, and his hair is, smoothed back, and it's tied at the back with ribbons and stuff, but he is no longer cutting the exact same silhouette as the man who left the stabbing. And then he just keeps walking, gets out the other side, and then doesn't break into a run, but definitely is walking with that kind of, I have somewhere to be, I'm very busy sort of walk, so that people will get out of his way.
And Mr. Lurk, I assume, is maintaining a discreet distance but following?
Yes. And I think that he'll follow suit, understanding this kind of thing, take off his big cowboy trench coat and, or I guess a duster jacket, and his cowboy hat. The cowboy hat is much more difficult to tuck under his arm because it is a full-on Stetson, like,
yes, excellent,
1.5 feet,
perfect.
So he struggles with it, but it.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So you dash Mr. Spider for the address, as seamlessly and as quickly as you can. I am simultaneously going to add another segment to the clock and remove the clock altogether, for reasons that will remain mysterious. Kirby's office is no longer about to be destroyed, and you arrive at a. I mean, the term office block in the modern day refers to something conceivably quite large, not in this particular era. It seems to be it's a building designed for being occupied by numerous independent professionals. There are accountants here. There are small brew solicitors here, micro solicitors, if you will. They brew micro law. Organic vegan micro law.
They'll just help you with like one specific kind of infraction.
Yeah.
Like
a
your tax
cruelty-free
returns were late.
barrister.
Yeah, I can help you with that, but everything else it's like
and you can see on the nameplate on the front of the door that there's a bell for a Kirby Esquire, business and finance matters.
what is this traditional way that you would get into such a place?
Well, the building itself has a bell, and the building itself has a receptionist, so you can probably get in. You don't have to ring for Mr. Kirby directly. But that would be futile. He actually recently died.
Oh, really?
Really?
So,
Yeah.
looking at the layout, does it look like Kirby has his own floor, or does he share a floor with another office?
Oh, certainly. He certainly would. Actually, I don't know. There is a mix. I suspect he only has half a floor to himself, though.
In which case, Mr. Spider will look at the layout of the names, and we'll ring for the receptionist.
There's a because this place handles finances, there is a rather bored-looking security guard's a bit of a grandiose term for a bored-looking bloke, but he sighs and gets up and opens the door and points you into the way of the reception desk. Yes, you can't be buzzed in. The door doesn't have a magnetic lock, sadly. If people haven't
Magnets actually haven't been invented yet. At
if
this
people
point.
haven't figured out venison, they definitely haven't figured out magnets. You get a cheerful smile from a young secretary behind the desk. Good afternoon, sir. How can I help?
Good afternoon. I was hoping I could speak to someone from Gleason and Associates.
Oh, first floor.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. If you'd please sign in.
He does, with a fake name.
Do you know your way, sir?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much.
I'll be right here if you need any help.
In signing in, he will glance at the book to see if anyone has signed in recently for Kirby, but
no one has declared that they have signed in for Kirby at the very least.
He walks with that kind of I'm busy, but also is unfailingly polite to the receptionist, because that's what you do. You never know when you need a receptionist to be on your side. But he takes off before anyone can ask questions or escort him or anything, and heads up to the floor of Kirby.
You can see that indeed Kirby has half the floor, and there are two other firms represented on this floor, each with about half the space that he has.
Does he work alone, or are there other people in his office?
Well, you're not yet in his office. It's locked up.
So I meant more. So it's not like there's someone there who could let him in.
There doesn't seem to be. Although the glass on the door is frosted, you can see. I think there's probably another window, and you can see that where you would expect at least a secretary to be, there doesn't seem to be anyone there. It may well be that because of his plans for today, he sent anyone home.
I mean, that would make some quantity of sense. So Mr. Spider is going.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a pretty good chance that oh lordy, she be coming,
So Mr. Spider is going to hurriedly try the door. And
It is,
should
of course, locked.
And should he find it locked, he is going to pick that lock.
Is he going to pick that lock, or is he going to test the skills of his new associate?
He doesn't know where he is.
I'm not there.
Oh, you're not there yet. Okay, fine.
Well, so
unless he turns around to see Mr. Lurk.
I mean, that would be fine.
Because he's found another way into the building.
Well, so what I was going to do, seeing him go in there and knowing that we don't necessarily want to be seen together, what I would do is, so a couple of questions. How busy is this street? How close are the buildings next to it? And how tall is this building?
It's not
like how many floors?
It's not terribly busy. There are 3 floors. Are you thinking of doing a little urban parkour?
Yes.
A little Assassin's Creeding?
Yes. Finding an empty floor or an empty room and getting in that window.
I want to do this. I don't know how to do this. I will spend stress. I will spend planning points. But if he is going to attempt to scale the wall, the building, maybe there's a ladder from the roof or something, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
As Mr. Spider is on the landing that the the stairwell and the doors move off from, I more than anything want him to go to the wall that faces an alleyway and open the window into the alleyway.
Yeah, I think that you can. What I'm imagining is you go to the window, and you see that there's just below the window there's one of those little lead pipes, and I think you test its stability, and then without looking, you just sort of give a thumbs up out of the window. You have no idea where Mr. Lurk is, but you assume he's got his eye on you since that's what he's for. And I believe you have the foresight ability, which means you can provide Mr. Lurk with assistance without paying stress. And actually, we have a minor help from Photo Potato. So, I am going to. So you get an extra die, Zoe, on top of your normal. I'm assuming this is a prowl, right?
I would think so. I don't think it's finesse. Yeah, no, it's prowl.
You get a bonus die, and I will let you choose. The minor help can either be another die, or it can be increased effect. I personally think another die is slightly better.
Yeah, I don't know that increased effect. Like, I do a cool flip when I go into the.
Essentially, you're not being timed, so I don't think. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so prowl, it is controlled.
It is risky.
Oh, it is risky.
Yeah, you might fall.
That's true. That's okay.
It's risky. Cringe.
Risky standard effect with 2 bonus dice.
Standard effect. 2 bonus dice.
I can give you another die if you push yourself or take a devil's bargain, but you've got 4 dice now, so you might not think that's necessary.
All the dice. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, this will be fine. Okay. Submit. 2 5s and a 6.
Fantastic. A 6. A straightforward success. What
do I still get to do a cool flip?
You know what? Yes, you can do it. You can do one of the Assassin's Creed things where they swing from one thing to another. What did Shenrune say in the chat?
I don't know.
Because it's blocked something. I'm a moderator. Why can't I see what it says?
I wonder if he accidentally put in a full stop and it thought it was a link.
Oh, maybe. Anyway, I'll meet you on the second floor. Yes, the second floor, the floor numbering thing might legitimately confuse.
Well, I was going to tell you to meet me on the first floor, but I thought that might confuse you.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, just what a bad system.
That system ruled an evil empire. Okay, so
yeah, and look at it now.
Case closed. Look at it now. Like 4 countries drive on the left, and good for them. So yeah, you make it up pretty smoothly. You barely make any sound getting up there. and Mr. Spider has helped by opening the window and letting you know the pipe is sturdy. And so very, very, very professionally, you slide your way into lurk your way into the onto the floor, very smooth. The landing is you couldn't hope for a better landing. And Mr. Spider is there.
Mr.
I
Spider's-
probably would have left my. Would I have left my coat and hat at the bottom? No, because I don't want somebody to find that. So yeah, I would have put my coat and my hat back on. The hat is kind of a struggle to get it through the full, even the open window. But
Mm.
Yes, we might have to talk about the hat.
do you like it? You want one? I'm a little bit of an amateur haberdasher myself.
I'm planning on starting a haberdashery if I can just get the seed capital.
You're an amateur haberdasher, man of multitudes, Mr. Sullivan.
Hmm.
Anyway, he will step back and he will look. You know, he's not one of great expressions. You've come to learn that the particular upper middle class of Britain can be very like no expressions, no emotions, never. But he does incline his head at the quality of the scaling, and then will step back and hold his hand out towards the door to Kirby and Associates.
All right, I will pick the lock.
Excellent.
He appreciates that he doesn't even have to say it.
He knows.
Lurk sees a dark room that we want to go into, probably the room of the murdered man.
Well,
He's not going to let us in.
I think, yeah, he trusts that if it were open, Mr. Spider would have just gone in.
Mr. Spider's holding out his hand towards the door, and he goes to pick the lock. He's like, "No, it's open. I was just saying you first." He doesn't do that.
So shall I roll a finesse?
You normally speaking, it's a tinker, but a finesse can work. But the way I would generally do it is you can roll tinker. I know you have one die in tinker, or you can roll finesse, which is one more die, but you would have reduced effect.
Well, so I have my fine lockpicks. Does that give me extra help for tinkering?
Yeah, that would. You have fine lockpicks. This isn't a very high security office in the first place. So okay, so the full answer is you can roll a single die at increased effect. Or you can roll 2 dice at standard effect. I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess. Fine lockpicks.
Yeah, then I'll go finesse. I think I can maybe flavor this by he just did the really cool, climbing up the pipe thing. He is riding that high. He really wants to impress Mr. Spider. He wants that good Yelp review. Yeah. So he's gonna pull out his fine lockpicks. He's really gonna finesse it. Okay, is this still risky because I could get caught?
No, there's no one up here who can catch you, so it's should be a control position.
All right, so controlled, standard effect, because I have the fine lockpicks. Okay, okie doke. Oh no!
Well, notwithstanding all our negotiations, nothing can help it when you roll a 1. So I'm gonna let you play this off really smoothly. So lockpicking is an ongoing task, right? Mr. Spider doesn't know how badly you've done. You have, unfortunately, badly bent your tension tool.
Yep.
Which means your lockpicks no longer count as fine for the rest of this adventure. But there's nothing stopping you from doing it again. I'm going to put, in addition, because I am a bastard, I'm going to put the position up to risky, not because you risk getting caught, but because you risk jamming the lock with your broken tools.
At that point, I would just bash in the window. All right. Yeah, I will finesse again. This time, more scared. Okay. So down to limited effect
Yes, down to limited effect or reduced.
because my
effect.
lockpicks are shit.
They are now. They are now not great. No.
Yeah.
Okay. So you roll 4. That gets you 2 segments on the 4-segment clock to open the lock. But again, there's no one coming, so as far as Mr. Spider's concerned, this is just a particularly complex lock. But I'm going to give you, because you were so smooth getting in, I'm going to give you, no, you just look like you haven't gone damn or anything like that. Mr. Spider's going, he's very intent on this task. Very professional. I like this.
He's sweating. All right.
Yep.
Again. Risky?
Yep.
Limited?
Yep.
No bonus dice. Oh, it's fine.
There's only so much power that I have. The dice are my master.
Yes.
And so, unfortunately, your bent tension tool becomes a broken tension tool. And the end of it has fallen away into the lock. Not even the key could now open this lock.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very heavy sigh.
Before you do your heavy sigh, I have a duty to remind you that you are entitled to resist the consequences of this failure if you wish to do so. No, you're going to roll with it? That's absolutely fine.
I'm going to slowly stand up, glance at Mr. Spider, and then do a very big cough. And as I cough, I'm going to punch the window of the door.
Excellent. That's wonderful.
Put your Stetson against it so that you don't...
Yeah.
I think you could argue for prowling the door open.
Explain.
Okay, well, you don't. You could. It could be a wreck.
Am I ambushing the door with close violence?
I mean, technically, yes.
I never saw it coming.
Look, you can either look. Your options are you can wreck the door, for which you roll 0 dice.
Yeah.
For standard effect. Which you'd have to spend stress to get dice, or take a devil's bargain. Or assistance from Mr. Spider in some form, or you can try to prowl it at reduced effect. This is, I mean, prowling does cover the broadest sense of breaking an
It does. Yeah, fuck it. Prowl. Okay. Is this controlled?
This is risky because it might make noise.
I was... okay. I mean, you're right. I was just hoping I could get away with it.
You can push yourself for increased effect or a bonus die if you wish to do so. So bargain at 2 stress. Or 1 if Mr. Spider can figure out a way he can have assisted you.
Yes, I would like to assist.
Mm-hmm.
How would you have assisted me?
I mean, you can also do both. You can get 2 bonus dice.
I think
Would you also cough?
Yeah, just a lot of coughing is happening.
Izzy would do one of her famous sneezes, and no one would think anything was awry.
They just think, oh, someone's
A
dying.
man is dying, yeah.
We will give him respectfully space.
Someone has dropped a grenade.
We should all leave. How dare you? My sneezes are delicate as dewdrops.
They're as delicate as Mount Everest.
I think given that he observed the door for all of sort of 5 seconds, which is enough because he's a smart lad.
He is.
He might have looked at it and he knows that Lurk, as a professional, will likely aim for the corner of the glass, because that's the best place to break it. But I think he'll have noticed something like a place where there was a chip and they fixed it, or a place where there was a chip and they've covered it with lettering or something, sort of on the other side of the pane, and he'll point it out to Lurk, because
So it's a single pane of glass. Maybe someone skimped on the heating and it cracked a little bit.
they've cleverly covered it with a letter or something, but it's just,
well, some people might not have noticed it because the glass is frosted. But you have spotted it, so you point that out and go, that corner might be best. Yeah, so I think you have 2 uses of your free assist, so you can do that for free. So Mr. Lurk can have a bonus die. You can also push yourself for a second bonus die, or take a devil's bargain.
You really want me to do that?
No, I'm neutral on devil's bargains, but no one ever asks.
You are the devil in the devil's bargain.
Yes, but I always have to remind people they exist, because normally people don't ask for them. I have to remind them it's a possibility, but I don't care whether you take one or not.
No, skeptical. No, I think because I am good at the prowling, and with Mr. Spider's help, I think I should be okay. Do I want to push myself?
You are going to do this in one go, and thus minimize it, because you're on reduced effect. To do this in one go and thus reduce the chance of either injuring yourself or having to do it twice. You will probably want to roll a 6.
Yeah. Then I was so pissed at this, it broke my fucking lockpick. That I will spend the 2 stress, and so I get what, 2 bonus dice?
You get 1 bonus die, but you also have a special ability.
I do.
The Devil's Footsteps.
I wasn't sure, but is it a feat of athletics to? I guess it is, punching a window.
Perform a feat of athletics of those of you. I would say you could...
Can I punch out the entire glass pane in one thing?
I think you have a special technique where you somehow apply your whole hand as force, and you neither, because you're wearing gloves, right?
Yeah.
So you can do it in such a way where it perfectly shatters the glass. You chi blast the window open, and you don't cut yourself.
Perfect.
So you don't even actually need to roll this. I think the Devil's Footsteps, just you spend 2 stress and you perform a feat of athletics that verges on superhuman.
So I get, let's see, because I get 1 die from Mr. Spider helping me.
Yeah.
And then do I get another die from pushing myself, or do I just get...
Yeah, you'll get another die from pushing yourself. So I'll say what we'll do is you're definitely going to manage to break the glass in one go.
Yes.
But we'll do a roll for how quietly you manage to do it.
Perfect. All right, so 2 bonus dice. We're good to go.
And I'm going to take away the limited effect as well. I think it's going to be a standard effect, because I've already guaranteed that you're going to break the glass because of your superhuman chi blasting powers. Oh, well, there's that 6. Fantastic. So, it's like it's safety glass. It breaks perfectly. Mr. Spider, this is a practiced maneuver with using the fault line you have exposed. Mr. Lurk has basically used the heel of his hand to shatter the glass, which falls away. Which this glass probably shouldn't be able to do, because it should form really big shards. It does not. And it comes away. The force of it makes the window come away from the door. It lands pretty quietly. And because I think Mr. Lurk has noticed there's a welcome mat or something, and he's managed to push not to be too forceful. And you're able to turn the latch on the inside of the door, and rather smoothly, with not even the slightest graze on your gloves, you manage to open the door. And the shattering palm. Perfect. Yes, that's the name of the technique. It's Victorian England, so I assume you learnt it from a mystic in Limehouse or something.
Yeah.
But you've got the shattering palm technique down pat. and you open the door and you are admitted access to Mr. Kirby's office. There is something quite strange about the office. As I say, it occupies half a floor, which is definitely in a building like this. It's the size of business that should be handling a good handful of clients, but the shelf of record books is completely bare. It is as though he's just moving in or just moving out. And if it weren't for the fact that you can see a secretary's desk with all the accoutrements of a perfectly busy practice, you would think that no one actually worked here. And you can see that half of the building is dedicated to the records room, which is also where the secretary sits, and the other half is there's a door. It's not locked, but there's a door into the other half of the office, which is Mr. Kirby's private office itself.
After you.
Yeah, Mr. Spider is, I think, automatically standing there doing the kind of surveying the room thing to try and figure out where he, I think, would potentially hide something, or do the equivalent of looking for his laptop, his date book, his...
So you can see there is probably a date book in the drawer. There are a few social engagements listed in it. You flick back up. For the most part, for the first few months that you go back, it doesn't seem as though he's in all that often. And the days he is in are usually marked with the letter M. After you've gone back 3 months or so, you do see meetings logged with other clients, but that stops pretty abruptly. There is the only other thing of note, and this probably explains why the shelf of record books is empty, is that there is a sizable safe in the back of his office.
I think Mr. Spider will clock the safe and then look. We'll look at it and then turn to Mr. Lurk.
Let's see. So I'm sure brought my burglary gear, as you always do to a bodyguard mission. Maybe he just always has it on him.
Yeah.
Could I use my burglary gear to crack the safe rather than... Well, because I guess safes... Yeah, like, is it the kind of safe that is like a combination? I don't know if those existed then.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
About early 1910s. No, it's got two locks on it. Could you use your... Well, yes, there are potential bypass tools that you could use. Burglary tools could include a hand drill, although I doubt you have a bit hard enough to... you could try prying the door off.
Yeah. I think I'm going to end up destroying the safe.
Yeah, look, well, yeah, Mr. Kirby isn't going to mind.
That's true, he's dead.
And earlier I started a clock for destroying the entire office, so obviously I don't care. Devil may care, and I am.
You are.
They should call it a bastard's bargain. That's my theme. Yeah, so you can try applying a pry bar.
Yeah, I think I will. I'll pull out a crowbar and I'll just look at Mr. Spider to get approval for, am I allowed to destroy the safe?
He will glance. Normally, Mr. Spider likes to get in, get out. Yeah. No sign. But then he'll look at the glass on the door and then just go,
yes.
Because basically we've come this far.
Yeah, Mr. Lurk is going to hide his glee as he goes over and gets ready to fuck up this safe.
Excellent.
Mr. Spider looks off to the side with an expression that can only be read as, it's like Cutter never left.
Okay.
This would be Wreck, I assume.
It could be Wreck. Wreck would imply you're sort of jamming in and leaving in a very crude way. I could hear it. I think Finesse could work. Like you're trying to find where neither the hinge nor the latch are holding onto the door enough. I think Finesse could work personally, but if you're determined to roll no dice, I will not intervene.
Well, yeah, I guess the thing is, like, does he want to go full, small child wrecking the, Lego castle?
Has he had enough of this shit and just?
Well, I think he did. I think if he had full on punched the window, then yeah, he would be in wreck mode. But I think because he, trusts that he can, he has the skills to finesse his way into places. I think, yeah, he will ply the safe in a more careful manner. Okay. So, all right. This would be controlled, probably.
I think so. Yeah, I do think so.
The crowbar slips out of his hand and bonks Mr. Spider on the head.
We'll have a different conversation if you roll a 1, but I think it's controlled.
Okay. Standard effect?
Yeah. Because I think this is a legitimate technique.
Ooh, 2 5s.
5, wonderful, okay. So success at a cost. I mean, it's a pretty sturdy safe, so I guess what I'll go with is you do manage to deform the door to the point where it doesn't sit on its hinge properly, so you can open it. It probably deforms the end of your crowbar a little bit. You're gonna have to take a hammer to the crowbar between now and the future, but it's done its job, so that'll only be a problem if you need it again. So you're able to open it up, and you can see there are two. It's a 2-shelf safe, and there are 2 notable events occurring within it. A very tiny quinceanera is happening on the second shelf. A little pixie quinceanera. Very strange. The first thing is that on the upper shelf there is a strongbox. On the lower shelf there is a stack of fairly standard-looking logbooks. And I think also a manila folder with some papers in it too.
I take the box, you take the books.
How big was the box, sir?
Strong box. It's about yay.
I think actually Mr. Spider will have basically, as soon as there were documents involved, swept them into his coat. And I think he will look and glance back to the door and then just say, "No, I'll take the box."
It might be slightly more interesting to read the documents here.
That's what I thought we were doing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm moving. Go back to the desk. I just don't want to
you said swept them into your coat. I imagined you sort of tucking them away. Of course, you're going to sit at the desk. That would only be proper. You're not going to hunch over.
Hunch over a safe like some sort of criminal.
Very true, you say, over the ruins of this safe.
Which I'm not hunched over.
So you've taken both the papers and the lockbox. So the papers, there are two things going on. There's the logbooks, which seem to be records of financial transactions, which would require a very great deal of time, because financial transactions to Mr. Spider are a question of understanding wider patterns, aren't they, rather than someone spent £4 on a sandwich.
Yes.
Someone spent £4 on some biscuits. I hope they're by appointment.
Someone spent £4 on some biscuits in the Victorian era.
Zoe, you don't have this in the States, do you? Where you'll buy some biscuits, or sorry, cookies, and then on the packet it will say by appointment to Her Majesty the Queen. We do. Well, we don't anymore, obviously.
What the what? What?
Some companies are by appointment to the crown purveyors of certain products. So, for example, if you were to purchase a a packet of Jacob's cream crackers, it would say upon the side, by appointment to His Majesty the King, purveyors of biscuits, etc. That's a real thing.
Yep.
Because we're a real country, Zoe.
It's like having buy this juice. It's the president's juice.
It's like saying the president once drank a bottle of Tropicana. Now you can too, and it's got the seal of the United States on it. That's basically what's happening. Except that would be weird.
That would be weird.
Yeah.
No one cares. No one cares what Biden drank. I don't really.
To be fair, our presidents are usually only in office for 4 or 8 years, not literally like 80 years.
That's true.
But,
It seems very inefficient to have so many elections. We only elect a king once every death, which can be quite frequent. Sometimes a monarch of Britain will go to war with France for no reason, and then they die quite quickly.
We are overdue one. I'm looking forward to it.
The last time we invaded France was about 70 years ago.
Yeah,
80 years
quite a
ago
while.
now. Yeah.
Let's begin the war with the French.
And we pretended that
France.
was for their own good, and we sort of winked as we blew up all their bridges and went, "We're back. Hi.
Guys.
It's your best pal."
This is France, our best pal who we hate.
Every time it's like the beginning of Robin Hood Men in Tights when the village gets burnt down. They go, every time they film a Robin Hood, every time they have a world war, they come to France and they blow it up. What do you mean? Oh, the Germans? No. That's the weird thing. Our allies, they always come. The first time they just dug up half the country and turned it into godforsaken trenches. This time they're blowing up all our roads. Unacceptable behaviour.
We've come to help.
We really are. But the Great Channel War of 2023, imagine us infiltrating through the Channel Tunnel. Absolutely perfect. That's what we built it for. Little British mole men coming out with our bows and arrows.
Is that what we find in these
Vengeance for
files?
Agincourt. That's what we find in the files. It's plans to invade France by a tunnel that's dug under the English Channel. Or as they call it in France, the English goddamn Channel. Because apparently we got to just name that, and that's the way that goes forever. What you actually find in the Manila folder, you find a selection of deeds or properties. And most of these are commercial addresses. One of them you note, and to no surprise at all, is St. Anselm's Orphanage. You knew about that one. They are not all, of course, in the same name. This one, of course, is in the name of a Mr. Elias Crane. There is an address that is a residential address. It is the only address registered in the name of Miss Eudora Mountjoy, which seems a very strange choice. But you do remember Amelia saying something about her kind being particularly territorial. Perhaps she must own her residence. But nevertheless, there it is. It is in Mayfair. Which, as anyone who's played Monopoly knows, is pretty swanky.
I wonder if this address is in a hotel. Then it should be very rich indeed. Yeah, Mr. Spider is going through the files, looking at them, and like moving the deeds into sort of piles that make sense to him. And then when he gets to the Mayfair address, he will sort of set it down and go, there.
And as you ponder the paperwork before you, we'll transition to a break, and we, the audience, see what the one gentleman stranger and the one soon-to-be gentleman stranger do not, which is a lone figure in a nearby alleyway, watching, listening with impossibly sensitive ears, turning with a great dramatic swoosh of her dress and vanishing into the shadows. back. Hi, everyone. Hope you had as pleasant a break as we did. We made hot drinks or ate food. We did really well, actively triumphant. Mr. Spider and Mr. Lurk. Mr. Lurk,
Yes.
today has involved considerably more crime than perhaps you might expect from an ordinary day's work. How are we feeling?
Not sure yet. I think it's going to depend on how this goes. I'm not a fan of stabbings generally.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a downer. But work is work. I will do what Mr. Spider asks until the job is done, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Does he at least appreciate that a fancy gent like Mr. Spider is kind of coming along for the ride? Like, he's not just going, break into that building and bring me a thing. He's like, let's go. We're breaking in together.
The wealthy people that he has dealt with normally are very much the, I don't get my hands dirty. And they're like, So he appreciates that Mr. Spider does get his hands dirty, metaphorically speaking.
Yes. Although I will have to have my gloves cleaned. This is unreasonable.
I think you're just going to have to get new gloves. I mean, those blood stains I don't know are going to come out. You got to get it early. They've had a while to sit now.
You are the expert.
Yeah.
Do you know someone in the haberdashery trade who might be able to help?
It's kind of like the wrong end of the body, the hands and the head.
So I think what's going to happen is, I guess the scene is going to cut in probably in a cab, which is taking us to Mayfair.
Oh, we're going straight to this lady's house immediately?
Apparently so. Excellent.
Okay.
Mr. Spider vacated the space, got into a cab.
Yeah, I guess it's probably quite remarkable to Mr. Lurk, actually, how Mr. Spider seems like quite driven in this particular case.
He did say he was going to need me for 2 days, right? So this is, I guess I did sign up for 2 full days of stuff, right?
Well, this is the second day. He hired you for yesterday evening to have drinks with him, and now all day today.
Oh, yeah, I got my days mixed up. Yes.
I think it's because what he was saying was if you were working that night, he was paying you for the meeting as well, because like you were a professional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now Mr. Spider has been sort of obsessively he looked through the files, he double looked through the files, he checked the room over again before sweeping them into his case and moving. Did you say anything about the lockbox?
I didn't say anything about the lockbox. You've taken it with you, I assume.
Yes. So we haven't been able to open it.
You've not declared to me that you've attempted to open it. I assume that was a project for later. But you've got it with you, so you can always do that at some other point.
That's fine. It will be sat on the seat of the cab just while we're driving. And I guess Mr. Spider has put his hat next to it and has gone, and Mr. Lurk will see, he pulls up his sleeve and starts checking and fiddling with a device on his wrist.
He's gonna watch as you do that. He's not gonna say anything because that would be rude. He's learned people don't like it when Americans just make small talk. So he's just gonna look and be curious about this machine.
Right. When we get there, I'm not confident what we'll find, but given the address, I think I have a fairly clear idea.
So on the bridge, you I mean, this is really the first chance we've had to really talk since then. It looked like you saw something, and I wasn't able to really figure out what you were staring at, but you looked white as a sheet. What did you see?
It was a momentary lapse in
So nothing to be worried about?
Oh, I didn't say that. Mr. Lurk,
Yes?
you have never asked me why I approached you.
You said you needed someone with my skills.
Yeah.
Figured that spoke for itself.
Quite. And then Mr. Spider is just going to go quiet until the cab ride is over. In that way that is a little bit off-putting, is that he's not actually all that great at not even small talk, medium talk.
Yeah, I think Mr. Lurk is just gonna do a little like nod, like okay, whatever.
That's the end of that sentence. And then when the cab ends, he'll just step out with confidence.
Yeah, the cab, I assume, drops you off at the end of the street rather than right outside the address. It's a very, very swanky street.
Mr. Lurk gets out a big map.
Where are you? I've only got this underground map. Is that any good where we're going?
Yes, well, we'll just place it over the top of the city and just...
Weirdly enough, it's dated 2021. Quite a lot of this doesn't exist. It's very strange.
So one thing that is difficult for me as an American is anytime that you mention like locations or businesses or streets or whatever, I don't know if they're real or not. And so sometimes you're like, oh yes, and people from London will know what I mean when I say this. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize that was a real place. Okay.
Almost everything in London is a real place.
Oh.
There's not much I could make up that would be that ridiculous.
Has anyone ever tried to play Mornington Crescent with you, Zoe?
Oh God, don't.
Those words mean nothing to me.
It's a form of bullying, and it's utterly, utterly unacceptable. The thing is that, yeah, London's a very bizarre place.
No, hang on. I'm so sorry, Lucas. I'm dragging you into this now just because I need to see Zoe's reaction in real time.
No.
God.
Zoe, it's all right. Luke and I are just going to play a quick round for you.
No.
Okay.
No. Come on.
Okay, you start. You go first.
Okay, so I assume we're doing London standard rules for American tourists.
Haxon be variation because the year ends in even number.
Okay, no, that's fair. In which case, Tooting Beck.
As an opener?
As an opener.
Haxon be, sorry. King's Cross, St Pancras.
Ooh, okie dokie. That really opens up the board. Then I will say Morden.
Piccadilly.
Piccadilly. Morden, Piccadilly.
Oh, I should have said Moorgate. Jesus Christ.
Googe Street.
I know.
Yeah.
Tower.
Sorry, it was an... Okay. In which case, Stratford.
Anyway, Zoe, it goes on like this.
No, you have to finish the game.
Oh, for God's sake. Mornington Crescent.
Fuck's sake.
It goes on like this until someone cracks and just says Mornington Crescent. There are no rules. You just list underground stations. You have to list underground stations and pretend that you both understand what move the other is making.
Lucas ruined it because my favorite thing at the end of the game is to go, oh, it's a fool. Mornington Crescent.
Yeah, you have to say it like you've just scored an unexpected checkmate. The game is a form of bullying. It's not fun for anyone.
It's so fun. I love it all the time. Everything we just said were real tube stations in London.
I don't think Piccadilly is. I think it's called Piccadilly Circus. I think Piccadilly is a line on the underground, actually. But
should have called you out on that.
I feel like a game, if we're going to call it that, that is a form of bullying that no one necessarily finds fun. That is the most British game.
It's fantastic because no one wants to be so rude as to win too quickly.
Oh yeah. Plus it's boring.
We invented a variant. This is for the tabletop nerds out there.
So
those who are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, more specifically the variant of Dungeons and Dragons known as Pathfinder, will know that there is a spell within Pathfinder called Find the Path. So a very long time ago, 10 years ago now, we came up with a Mornington Crescent variant that is called Find the Path, where you start naming random spells. And you can do bullshit like, ooh, 5th level abjuration, that's clever. I guess I'll have to go magic missile?
Magic missile, really?
Well, it was that or wish, and we're not ready for that. You know, that kind of thing. Anyway, Jesus Christ.
And then it would be, because you win at Pathfinder by casting Find the Path. And it made our GM, Luke and I were both playing in a Pathfinder game at the time, and it made our GM so irrationally angry with us.
Yeah, he the reason we came up with it, by the way, is because he specifically proscribed Mornington Crescent, and so we went, okay, Find the Path. Like I said, it's a form of bullying. Because
we're playing Pathfinder.
It's a game that no sane person could ever consent to joining in with, but it's kind of irresistible.
So my oldest friend, for whom he is my brother and I was his best man, we play this game unironically to vex the people around us, and it brings us...
I am often the people around them.
Yeah, I was trying, like, I thought that maybe, because at the beginning it sounded like it was one of those, like, alphabet games where whatever, like, the last letter of your thing was. Had to be the Zoe.
Dear
that quickly was dissolved and was obviously not the case.
You are a sane and not cruel person. You naturally assume that there must be something going on.
Yeah.
It must be real. They wouldn't just do this.
It's genuine.
Anyway, so you were right, Jesus Christ. So you were right. It's a much easier game in 1880 something because there's not quite so many underground stations.
Well, so let's play Mornington Crescent, Camden.
Except I don't know if the tube extended as far as Mornington Crescent, so it might not even have been there. Anyway, you get out on this Mayfair street, and it's very, very fancy. This is My Fair Lady territory for those not familiar with the districts of London. This is where actually Jeremy Brett.
You can just say my name.
But there are Americans in the audience. So you know they also have no idea about. I don't know much about London. But yeah, My Fair Lady was set in this kind of place, where you might in fact see Jeremy Brett, the visual inspiration for Mr. Spider, hanging around dolefully. So Mr. Spider, what's your plan?
Right. So, my plan for Mr. Spider is that they get out of the cab, and I think, given that it's a sort of, you know, nice curved sort of Mayfair street, he's going to restore his hat back on. You know, he knows that he's not going to get done for loitering around here, because he is definitely dressed like someone who might be around here, and he will sort of lean against a tree or something that's on the edge of the street or on the boulevard, glance down the street to make sure that, like, he's not going to the house straight away, but like there's not like a big smoking ruin there, or, you know, something that might demand his attention immediately. And then he will light a cigarette and look at Mr. Lurk for a moment, in that way that is not quite normal, a bit too direct.
Mr. Lurk is very uncomfortable in this part of he knows that he's not really, like, the only time he's been in a space like this is doing work, and so he's never really felt quite at home in a place like this. So he's just sort of standing there very, like, stiff, and as he sees Mr. Spider staring at him, he's gonna do the, like, you know, eye contact, look at the ground, eye contact to see if you're still looking, look back at the ground. That, like, awkward, you know.
apology. My microphone was having a little moment. Behave. I've got it propped on a box and it didn't want to be anymore. And then I think Mr. Spider will approach. You know, they're standing closest together so they can talk quietly, and I think he will reach out, and he's going to like we're in shadow. He's got his hat on. He's going to sort of very gently pull down Mr. Lurk's mask, and he looks like he's thinking about something.
I am married, Mr. Spider.
I don't follow.
It's just a little joke. Is there something I can help you with?
You are married, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Tell me, Mr. Lurk, do you believe in the supernatural?
You can see he is getting visibly uncomfortable at that question. Why do you ask?
Some years ago, when I was walking home from a dinner with my oldest childhood friend, he vanished. He walked through an alleyway that hadn't existed in nearly 50 years. I saw it with my own eyes, and yet not a soul ever believed me. It was as if London's fog swallowed him alive. It was particularly awkward. He happened to be closely related to me, and as no one believed me, I took my investigations elsewhere. I have reason to believe that you have some experience with.
Where did you hear that? Who told you that?
The person who recommended you to me.
I've never told. There was something that happened that I don't know how to explain, but I never told anyone. Who was it? Who did you talk to?
Your answer tells me everything I need to know, Mr. Lurk.
I know that I'm working for you today, but I don't appreciate being talked to in riddles.
No, nor I. I am appalling at riddles, but I find that if I explain my thought process in great lengths to anyone, they quickly lose interest. You see, I'm part of an organization. A shield against those forces that gather at the edges of society that people claim not to believe in. Monsters, fiends, ghosts. Things that would do harm and those that would traffic with them. I brought you on this mission today, partly because I truly had need of your skills. I did not imagine that that meeting would have gone as disastrously as it did, but I've certainly been very grateful for your presence in all aspects of it. But I've also been observing your skills. I believe that if you have been so affected by the things that lurk in the darkness, if you have some sense that you do not wish those things to hurt more people, perhaps the people you care about, perhaps the people of London, then there is a place in our organization for you.
You know what I do as a day job. You know, I can't just up and leave everything.
We all of us have our obligations. So the more of us that work to fight these forces, the less of a burden one places on everyone's day-to-day life.
I don't even know if what I saw was...
It was. I would not have had your name if it wasn't. Let's just get on with this. I'll think about it. You understand? I have a whole life. I have Mary, and this sounds dangerous. Oh, it is.
Not that what I'd normally do ain't dangerous, but...
Oh, I am asking you to join us. For recently, we lost a number of our company.
You say this organization does good for the city, for people.
We certainly try to.
You know, I assume you know, that the work I normally do is... I've done things that I don't always tell Mary all the details, because I don't think her poor heart could handle it. I've been looking for a way to do right by folks. Guess this could be the answer to that. Way to give back what I've taken during the day. You have to promise me Mary doesn't get tied up in all this. She is not to be a part of this. She doesn't know about it. No one ever comes to my house. You leave her alone.
Ah, now those are two very separate requests. I can promise nothing of the sort. I personally have no interest in coming to your home, talking with your wife. In fact, should you join us, I will have no memory of you at all. But I cannot promise that nothing will find you. That is entirely your responsibility. But those things exist, whether or not you wish them to. And whether or not you fight against them. As you know, innocent people are harmed all the time, for myriad reasons.
I'm not making any promises, but I'll think about it.
Very well. I've made this offer to you as the house we are currently investigating belongs to the murderer of the poor gentleman we have been on the tail of all day.
Cool.
It is sort of afternoon, correct?
Yeah, 1 or 2 by now.
The sun is high. And I believe she did not look well. Therefore, to investigate now, I believe, would be a calculated risk, but a risk nonetheless.
All right.
Should you wish to part ways now, of course I will pay you for your time up until this point, and we will speak no further of it.
You asked me to do a job. This is part of the job.
In which case, it is very, very important that you understand something. I do not know whether she will be there. You will keep your mask up at all times. Do not let her see your face. And if you have any reason to think she knows you are there, run. Get out of the house and run. If you believe some ghastly reason that I have not been as lucky as you, I would be obliged if you would let the barkeeper at the Aventine know.
I can do that.
But aside from that, your expertise will be very valuable here as well. Lead on, Macduff.
All right, on we go then.
To the fashionable address of Miss Eudora Mountjoy.
Ooh.
What's your approach, Mr. Spider?
I think Mr. Spider is planning on just sort of walking cautiously, but not drawing attention to himself. And then he just would like to scope out the place. If there's a way in subtly to have a poke around, then there's a way in subtly to have a poke around. Basically, it's a free-for-all. There's a big house, and he's looking at Mr. Lurk saying, we need to get as much information here as possible, do what needs to be done.
The truth is, you're having a bit of difficulty. You know the address, and you are indeed standing on the correct street. And you know how houses work around here. I don't know if this is the case in the United States, but in the UK, houses are numbered alternately. You don't have house number 1, next house number 2, etc. And so you are looking for number 9. And it's there. It's in between number 7 and number 11. But you keep walking past it. You're not walking anywhere near enough steps to overshoot.
Very clever.
And then there is a movement behind you. And you hear a single breath drawn in. And a lady's voice says, "Gentlemen."
Shit.
I think the spider spins around.
There is a lady standing on the opposite side of the street from you. though her voice seems to come from directly behind you. She takes a single step and is immediately in front of Mr. Lurk. Mr. Lurk,
Mm-hmm.
you've had your brush with things that were not easy to explain. But I think it is safe to say that never before in your life have you directly and provably experienced something which defies natural explanation.
Yeah.
When the human body encounters something of this kind, adrenaline takes over. And your body offers you a choice. But I'm going to offer you a slightly better choice. Your body offers you the choice to freeze in place like a deer gazed upon by a wolf, or to flee like the slightly smarter deer gazed upon by a wolf. I will offer you a third choice. Resist and stand your ground.
I mean, I know what I should do.
There's no should beyond what Zoe wants Mr. Lurk to do.
I think that he would probably just freeze. I mean, this is his first real direct encounter like this. He was not expecting, he wasn't prepared for anything like this at all. It is very much jump scare. So I think he's just gonna kind of, like when you have that adrenaline in your body and you get a little like woozy and like lightheaded, that's where he's at. He's like, his body is stuck and his mind is like out of his brain.
Okay. So, there's a minor help just been offered up. So what I will do with that is you freeze up. You don't have, control, but I'm going to, it's not one of those complete nightmarish freezes that takes your mind with it. Your prefrontal cortex is still lit up. There's still someone at home, even if you don't have full command just now of your limbs. She takes a languid step back, a very fluid motion. She looks perfectly ordinary to you.
Do I recognize her from the crowd of ladies?
Yes. Yes, you
Okay.
recognize her. You recognize her, the strangely loose curl of her hair.
Okay.
Gentlemen. Is today the day, Mr. Spider? Have you come to collect on the debt?
Not today, Miss Mountjoy.
Should that night ever come, Mr. Spider, know this. What you take from me, I will take from you. Set foot on this street again, and I will find you, mask or no. Next time you come will be the last time. Have a pleasant day, gentlemen. And she turns and walks to her house at number 9. And as she lays her hand upon the door, it is as though the spell of terror is broken. She does not look back. She feels no insecurity whatsoever at turning her back to you. The door is opened by a servant you don't quite see, and she enters.
Mr. Spider hawks away.
Mr. Lurk is just going to stand there and breathe for a second. And then follow Mr. Spider at a quick pace to catch up, because he does not want to be alone here.
Now, there's only one place to go to steel your nerves after an encounter of this sort, is there not, Mr. Spider? So, Mr. Spider takes you back to the place you met him at the Downtime, but this time leads you in, and the sturdy bartender can recognize, as he has seen before, something in Mr. Spider's eyes that says, you could do with something on the strong side. Mr. Spider strides straight to a large table, a booth essentially, and the landlord promptly brings you two glasses and a bottle of what looks to be sherry.
Thank you, Hyde.
I've been thinking about that offer.
Yes?
If a woman like that, don't even know, if someone like that can make someone like me and someone like you feel like that, we need to wipe it out.
Yes, we do.
And he's just gonna chug.
She speaks of debts and owings. She has taken quite enough from us already.
What is she?
She is a creature that sustains itself off of the life force of others. A parasite. Nosferatu.
Gonna take another chug and just sit there brooding.
Yeah, Mr. Hyde isn't quite sure who this new face is, but no one necks sherry like a gentleman stranger, so that must be what's going on here.
So you said there's a whole group of y'all?
We are called the Gentlemen Strangers.
And I've got to assume Spider casually whips out a calling card at this point.
Dadoy,
Otherwise,
he's shaken.
He's shaken, he's not stirred.
Right?
What does this calling card look like? Does it just have the name on it, or?
I'm not even. I think it must have a name on it, because the name Gentleman Strange has gotten around. I think it has nothing more that it's not even a proper calling card because there's no form of contact on it at all. There's a name and there's some sort of symbol upon it. We have not yet.
Yeah, do you guys
decided.
have like a logo?
There
Do you
is
have
a mask and a hat or something.
There is a logo. I thought of one back when face masks weren't a thing in real life. I designed one that was a top hat and a face mask, but I think it would just look too COVIDy now. It might be something. It might be something involving a top hat and an axe. I'm not 100% sure, but it communicates everything one would want. It definitely communicates that there's something upper class happening, but also that there's something violent happening.
Rad.
And it will one day be available in pin badge form. No doubt.
Well, when do I get to meet him? Is there some kind of, onboarding process? Do I need, training, or I don't know how all this works.
So that's a yes.
I think you're right that I hate feeling like there's nothing I can do for someone who these things are going to exist whether I'm there or not, so I'd rather be there. So yes, it's a yes.
Excellent. Then you shall meet the others when we next meet. 'Tis infrequent, but we have birds that deliver our messages.
Really?
Yes.
This country just gets more and more exotic every day.
Well, back home we use ponies, but
Yeah.
birds seem so much more efficient.
Yes,
Then again, a transcontinental pigeon is quite. I mean, that's a tired pigeon.
Oh yeah.
yes, they are fascinating beasts, quite carnivorous. You will be only reachable via bird, and so are the others of our number. You will only ever use the name Mr. Lurk. After tonight, I shall forget that James Sullivan exists. You can have my assurance on that.
Yeah, you strike me as the type of man who trust is a strong word, but you seem like you hold to your word.
Thank you. And trust is a strong word, but it is the trust between the gentlemen strangers is the only thing that holds us together. As far as training, I'm afraid we learn on the job. But
That's my favorite kind of training.
But I suggest you invest in a second tension tool.
Listen, the thing with the that was a pretty cool trick with the window though, wasn't it?
It certainly worked out to our favor.
Everyone agreed. Everyone thought so. When the building's manager came by, he was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe someone's done this, but I bet it would have been cool to see."
Get me the CCTV
And
footage.
then the insurance appraiser came to see if there was a valid claim and went, "My god, but it must have been very, very cool to see."
This is the coolest break-in.
Here-
You can
here
have
is-
all your insurance.
Here is £100. Here is 10 times the cost of the damages. Because I would love to imagine someone using the heel of their hand to do this.
The insurance appraiser says, they blocked the chi of this window.
and breaking the safe with what I can only assume was their little toe.
Oh, did we ever look at the lockbox in the meantime?
So what I was going to suggest next, as in a sort of a very abstract way, is that at some point, obviously, Mr. Lurk will be taken to the Millennium Club for the first time, the lair of the Gentlemen Strangers. And it was once a gentleman's club. Not in the modern sense, in the actual sense. And it's fallen into disuse. Half of the furniture or more is covered in dust sheets. There's a room that was once a bar that is more or less intact, but its only furnishings are an untuned piano, several chairs, and a portrait of Queen Victoria that's at least 30 years old. Which Mr. Spider pays due obeisance to.
God save the Queen.
It's a portrait from when she was still quite sexy, so Mr. Spider's very taken, although, she's not a man. I'm just making guesses about Mr. Spider, really. I don't know.
Izzy looks absolutely offended.
Well, I know Izzy's type. But you are shown, as well as these rooms. You have a room here as well to sleep in. This was a club, and it might be expected that the members may not live in London, and there might be times when there's an extended mission, and so you have a room of your own. But you are taken down into the wine cellar, in which there is a secret compartment. I say compartment; it's really just another entire cellar in which there is equipment and gear the like of which you couldn't have imagined they had based on the state of the place upstairs. It's very, very, very well appointed. There's a small library of sorts. There's weapons and equipment. Certainly you can easily replace your lockpicks here, and there are two articles in particular that attract your attention. I actually think that Zoe has been told about the orb and the door. So let's talk about the orb and the door, shall we? In the center
Let's contemplate.
In the center of the room, they have, I don't know quite what you're storing it on, but there's an orb about the size of a soccer ball, that is, imagine a pearl, but entirely in a sort of a hematite color. There's almost a translucent sheen of glittering cloud underneath the surface, and a door is mounted into the wall, which is seems to be made of some very richly dark wood, ebony probably, and it's engraven with strange glyphs. I doubt Mr. Spider draws too much attention to them, but they are there nonetheless. And there are all sorts of other bits and pieces. You're told about secret access tunnels. The Gentlemen Strangers own a little skiff that they can use to navigate the canals and river of London. And yeah, as I say, the resource of the Gentlemen Strangers are reasonably impressive, possibly reassuringly impressive after seeing the state of the Millennium Club and learning that, despite Mr. Spider calling it a society, there really are just the four of you, soon to be the five of you at this stage in the timeline, but the only four of you. I guess five of you if you count Amelia, soon to be six of you.
Oh yes, I love that Mr. Spider, having said, I'm Mr. Spider, you're Mr. Lurk, never show your face, this is your name. He just walks in and goes, that's Miss Amelia. And she's just like,
Yeah, in fairness, you swiftly learn Amelia is also a pseudonym. And speaking of pseudonyms, Mr. Spider, you have promised, as a gentleman, that you shall forget the name and address and face of James Sullivan. So I think we see Mr. Spider takes out a ledger, a very, very large book, And he turns to a ribboned page and very carefully tears it out. And what do you do with it? What do you do with this page?
Eat it.
Like
No,
in
because
like that scene in Red Dragon.
No, because if I eat it, then I become James Sullivan. I don't
That's
want
very
that.
true.
I don't want to marry your wife.
So I think this is Mr. Spider has always shown some curiosity about magical rituals, but I think this is a case of a ritual that's been set up for him. See, Madam Whisper, who assembled you, knew that she would not be an ongoing member of the Gentlemen Strangers, that someone would have to be able to replace fallen members if the time came. So I think she's set some things up with her own mystical arts to allow you to do this. And I think you find with this tome, you find a collection of these huge pillar candles in a richly red wax. The flame burns bright sky blue when lit. Touching the paper catches fire as you would expect it to in a candle's flame. But though the wax of the candle is indeed melting as you'd expect it to, the paper actually burns pretty heatlessly. And the blue flame spreads throughout the paper, and as you lay it down, you start remembering things differently. You remember writing a letter addressed to Mr. Lurk. You remember giving it to a courier, but you can't remember where you told the courier to go. You remember your first meeting with Mr. Lurk, but not as we saw it, with Mr. Lurk dressed for a restaurant. You see Mr. Lurk in his big American duster with his cowboy hat and his mask. You remember all of the events exactly as we've described them, but as far as you remember, he was always Mr. Lurk. You remember even that moment where you drew his mask down on that street in Mayfair, but you remember him stopping you and shaking his head. And he is once again, as he should always remain, a stranger.
It's a testament to the promise I made, Mr. Lurk, because I truly loathe not remembering things clearly. My perceptions are all I have, and when they are tampered with, it is vexing. Nevertheless, 'tis necessary, and I am glad to do it if it means that you are now one of the company.
And I think that by the time you've slept tonight and woken up, the wound is completely healed. There is no impression that your memories have ever altered.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it works. I think actually with Mr. Spider particularly, someone who is very attentive to his memories and very attentive to things he sees, I think he is concerned that he's going to be left with this feeling of something not being quite right. But of course, in dreams, our memories are reshaped. And Madam Whisper was very good at whatever the fuck her job was.
She was so good.
She was so good. Madam Whisper was also their first kill, and one day Mr. Spider will tell you about that.
I think what Mr. Spider will say is also, oh, and Mr. Lurk, I know you expressed concerns that somebody knew of your life and your experiences. Madam Whisper knew an awful lot of things, but she is dead. And now that I have completed my promise, the evidence she gathered is gone.
I went to, right after you finished that ritual, I went to pull out the letter that I received. And I know it's not like on the magic book paper, but more symbolically, I want to also burn that as well to show.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, as far as Mr. Spider knows, if he were to ever clap eyes on that piece of paper, all his memories would return.
Yeah.
And we don't want that. Yes, very, very good, very prudent. And that is how the gentleman strangers recruit, and that is how Mr. Lurk became a gentleman stranger. And I personally found that very enjoyable. I thought your conversation about will he, won't he was really, even though I knew the answer, I thought it was really good. At some point, we'll find out how Mr. Leech joined as well. As he's talking to ghosts again.
I'm talking to ghosts. Ghosts that bring me coffee. Oh yeah, Mr. Spider.
Coffee ghosts.
Coffee ghosts. No, my very conscientious housemate was asking if they could put the dryer on. I was just letting them know that we're nearly done. So yes,
Leave the clothes wet.
No, oh no, Zoe says that you must leave your clothes wet, Amy. Oh no. But no, I really loved that conversation in the street. That was really good. And Zoe, that was a blinder. Like genuinely, I knew you were going to join, but in my heart, I was like, oh no, what if he doesn't?
I mean, that's he is very worried about his wife.
I mean, what I like about it is that an encounter with Miss Mountjoy is either going to convince you that there absolutely need to be gentlemen strangers, or it's going to convince you to move to France.
Yeah.
It's going to convince you to get to I wasn't making a garlic reference. I was just thinking about getting to another country. But yeah, I mean, that wouldn't hurt. Garlic's, might be or it might not be. They actually have no idea.
It's the thing I love, though, is that Mr. Spider is a very good judge of character, and I'm a very good judge of tropes that I love. And Mr. Lurk is very much a character archetype that I really love, which is the whole something must be done, and I will be the one to do it. You know, he's our Captain America, and I'm like, I know that when faced with the actual horrors that's going on, he'd be like, well, gotta protect my wife.
Yeah, he is total wife guy.
Whereas Mr. Spider is the reverse. He's not altruistic, and he's just like, she keeps beating me. I won't stand for it.
There is one last bit of arcane weirdness, and this happens to Mr. Lurk. Mr. Lurk, you weren't made to sign your name or give a drop of blood or anything of that kind. There was no actual enrollment ritual for joining.
There was no hazing involved.
There was very little hazing. You had to pick up an olive with your butt cheeks and deposit it in a shot glass and then drink a shot from it. But other than that, that's perfectly normal.
Mr. Hound is going to bully you. He's going to hunt you through the house.
But there is a strange encounter that you have. This is immediately after your first time in the Millennium Club. And Izzy, I think you've implied that Mr. Lurk witnessed the burning of this page, witnessed this. So you saw it happen, and although you aren't privy to the mental effects of it, Mr. Spider certainly doesn't seem to be concealing anything, and you've had enough of a taste of weirdness to believe that something might have happened. And that evening, you're on your way home, and in your Mr. Lurk get-up, and you have a very alarming encounter, and that very alarming encounter is with your landlady, Mrs. Watkins.
This fucking landlady.
You're obviously a very familiar sight to her, but she jumps out of her skin when she sees you. You have to pursue her into her flat. You take your mask down, pursue her into your flat, and it's only when she sees you without your mask down that she recognizes you. But she looks you dead in the eye and says, "Mr. Sullivan, thank God, there was someone here just now. Would you check?" She simply has not registered that the only difference is the mask. And I think that's when Mr. Lurk realizes that being a gentleman stranger entails, perhaps, being yourself, something a little bit weird. So that's that. And this was probably a couple of months ago. So by the time we met Mr. Leech and Mr. Lurk as members of the Gentlemen Strangers, Mr. Lurk is the slightly senior member, and at some point we'll find out. Like Clark Kent's glasses, by strict convention. No, I mean, look, I'm not going to go on my Superman rant, but if you watch the what was it 76 Superman, Clark Kent becomes Superman makes perfect sense, because that guy doesn't just take off his glasses, he his whole posture changes, his voice changes. I absolutely believe no one can see through it. Forget Dean Cain, all he ever did was take off his glasses and vote for Trump.
No, but also just, if you have a friend that wears very distinctive glasses and they take them off, suddenly they're a different person. You can't recognize them.
Absolutely. I switched glasses style this very year, back in March. And I'm glad I did, but my face looks completely different. Okay, yeah, Christopher Reeves was awesome. I mean, he's probably been one of the best Supermans. I pluralized it twice just to be absolutely sure.
Supersmens.
The Supersmens. The only S that isn't an S is the S on his thing, which we're told by Zack Snyder is not an S.
It's not an S.
But Zack, I can read English, and I know what an S is.
It's a 5.
You'd think he would know since it's in his name.
You would think. He just pronounces it Uperman, and no one's quite sure what's going on.
He's Zack Snyder.
Well, so thank you all so much for showing up. In 2 weeks from now, which is the 27th. Oh, that's right after Emberglow. Is the 27th of November. We will be resuming with as many gentlemen strangers as we have to resume the story of the hunt for the Reverie Beast.
Oh, yes, we get nightmare monsters.
Nightmare monsters, which is what we like. So hopefully I will do the VOD for this episode more promptly than I did last one, because I know that at least Shenrune has come to this episode not having seen the previous one. It's not sequential, but you'll find out what a Reverie Beast is. And if you could do me the favor of pretending that in that session I call it a Reverie Beast throughout, because that's the name I wrote down and then forgot, that would be great. Help me gaslight the entire audience, and we'll be best friends. Really good friends. So all it remains for you to do is to say see you in 2 weeks' time and around about the internet until then, and to thank our wonderful patrons, to wit, Andrew Cherupnine, Araloki, Dinkledore, Eligus Alexander, Henry Prestige, James Malloy, Joe, Ken Poyner, Michael Bowman, Mike Fielding, MWKilburn, no more mics yet, Photosynthetic, and the Armchair Egyptologist, who is a confirmed devil. Until next time, have a wonderful couple of weeks, and we'll see you around.